think Danny Kane. I think a couple of them didn't sign it. And boy, oh boy, they probably gonna go after him too.
That was Diddy's former bodyguard talking about how the band Danity Kane might be on the long list of people who want their pound of flesh out of Diddy. But things went further downhill when he revealed why they would go after Diddy.
He said, yo, I'm gonna drug their ass off and pick them up and pip them out to my.
Normally, you'd expect anyone to doubt these words, but here's a peek into how he was treating them when they were working with him.
You're sick.
I understand that, but have you been sick and worked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go get some rest and you'll be better tomorrow.
And it seems this went on till she eventually got fired from the band, but the actual reason she did will blow your mind.
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me. Not talent-wise, but in other areas.
At this point, there's almost no way you haven't heard of the atrocities that Diddy allegedly committed in his rise to the top of the entertainment industry. Right from his domestic employees all the way to the artistes signed to his label who, if I might add, were the only reason he was making so much money, all suffered thunderstorms while under the business mogul. Now, it's been decades since, and while the years have exposed some of his dirty dealings, it's almost like a new story about Diddy's dark side comes out every week. Well, for this week's story, it's some of the members of the rapper's record label from back in the day, and according to them, the brother love persona that Diddy is portraying now is far from who they knew and worked with. The women who have stayed quiet for decades, seemingly out of fear for their lives, have now taken a different approach and are exposing some of their darkest times working with the record producer. Let's be honest, news about Diddy like this is not new. We've seen the executive get caught up in similar situations before. That's why the heat was turned all the way up when someone who worked with the man in a different capacity for decades also confirmed that the women, members of Danity Kane, were not lying about having to live and work under the worst conditions with Diddy as their boss. In fact, the person who confirmed their story even touched on some deeply personal parts of their story that proved that all of Diddy's efforts at making their lives difficult were very much intentional. Having lived through experiences like this makes one wonder why these women chose to be quiet all this time. Well, if you don't know anything about Diddy, the one thing people seem to know him for, after being a ruthless businessman, is that he can be dangerous. However, times have changed, and the man seems to have already walked into a couple of exposing situations himself in recent times. So what better time to expose who he really is to the world when they already started getting a glimpse of it from other people? And with a reputation like his, you'd think details like this about him wouldn't surprise people, but it seems the public thought everyone, even Diddy, had a limit. Boy, do I have a shocking and dark surprise for you. That's your cue to stay tuned till the end of the video to get the whole story.
You seem like at the end of the day, you're not really happy in the situation. Based on a lot of things that I've heard, you're not really a happy camper in this situation.
No, I don't think anyone has been happy for a long time in this situation.
Okay, so you could go too.
What do you think is worse than being a ruthless person? Being a ruthless person with immense power, and that seems to have been the life Diddy led, as several people have repeatedly shown the world that he may not be the perfect gentleman he's been painting himself as. From stories about him being involved in the murder of one of his own artists and best friends, all the way to claims that he may have been violent to his exes. It looks like there's almost always a problem with every relationship he's in, be it professional or romantic. This seems to be the story of the girl band Danity Kane. You remember Danity Kane? The girl group created right before our eyes on Diddy's MTV reality series, Making the Band 3 in 2005. And the girl group that disbanded right before our eyes in an explosive, uncomfortable season finale episode just 3 years later. The newly reformed girl group, which of its original 5 members got reduced to only Shannon Bex, Aubrey O'Day, and Dawn Richard, spoke to Cosmopolitan about their journey, which began on the 3rd incarnation of the MTV reality series Making the Band in 2005. They were everything you'd expect from a mid-aughts pop act: girl power-infused lyrics, coordinated kitten style, and the sort of choreography you'd try at home while watching the music video on TRL. Their earworm of a bop, Damaged, is probably playing in your head right now. If it's not, it will now. You're welcome. While the world thought these women were out there living their best lives, it seems they were being forced into unthinkable situations. Now, although some of the group members have told parts of their story with Diddy in the past, the news climbed back to the top of the trends a couple of hours ago after one of Diddy's old bodyguards revealed the plans his former boss had for them. According to Gene Deal, Diddy seemingly treated them so badly that the rapper was allegedly willing to not just get them hooked on drugs, but was also allegedly willing to pimp them out to his friends in the industry, just so he would recoup his investment on them. Can you imagine? I mean, we all agree that Diddy isn't exactly the best role model out here, but I can't say most people saw him turning into a pimp. Well, it seems that might have been something he was open to back then. In fact, even the person he was saying it to was shocked, as Gene said, after hearing what the mogul said. He mentioned to Diddy that he'd been referring to people's kids before walking out of the room. And to further establish that Diddy indeed had those plans, Deal revealed that there was someone else around when Diddy allegedly made those claims. Let's just say Deal's revelation might have ignited a fire, as fans took that as their cue to dig up what happened between the Danity Kane members and Diddy. And believe me when I say it was not looking pretty. In fact, only a couple of days ago, one of the band members spoke up against Diddy after someone from the rapper's past raised alarm about him. According to reports, former Danity Kane member Aubrey O'Day has reacted to Cassie's lawsuit accusing Diddy of R and years of A, which he has denied. She doesn't seem too surprised by the allegations. "I stay trying to tell y'all," O'Day wrote in a Thursday post on X. On her Instagram story, she shared screenshots of reports about the lawsuit, noting that she has been attempting to tell us about Diddy for years. She also tagged Cassie, writing, "Prayers up for this queen," with a raised hands emoji. O'Day later reiterated her full support of Cassie in a statement to Rolling Stone. "It isn't easy to take on one of the most powerful people in this industry and be honest about your experience with them. I know what her heart is feeling right now because I have done so as well." The statement reads,
Successful in so many other areas had I not been trained under Diddy. He was the hardest person that you can work for, and it was torture. And not the work part of it, but the other.
May her voice bring all the others to the table so we can start having more transparent conversations about what is actually happening behind the scenes. There is a lot more to all of our stories. Diddy formed Danity Kane on MTV's Making the Band in 2005. O'Day was removed from the group in 2008, though she later returned in 2013. She previously alleged in a December 2022 episode of the Call Her Daddy podcast that Diddy fired her because she wasn't willing to do what was expected of her. Not talent-wise, but in other areas, she said, in seeming reference to sex.
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me. Not talent-wise, but in other areas.
The reports at the time revealed that O'Day and Diddy had a rocky relationship during the series, which culminated in Diddy ejecting her and bandmate Juanita D. Woods from the group in 2008. Remaining members Dawn Richard, Andrea Fimbres, and Shannon Bex continued before eventually disbanding. However, the star also revealed some dark things about their time working with him that make her claim of being fired unjustly pretty believable. Puff is a very difficult person to work with, O'Day says. Everything had to be perfect. I remember times where he looked at my toenails and was like, "What is your third toenail doing? Go get that fixed before you walk into a room." Or we would be in rehearsals performing an hour-and-a-half set over and over, and he would walk in for 5 minutes with a camera and say, "Aubrey, why are you sweating? You look like a wet dog. You're the hot one, so do you think anyone wants to see that?"
Mind games, like just all the girls were so divided, and the men and the people running it had their hands in it, moving everything. There was a lot of betrayal. There was a lot of lies.
"We were scared to death with what would happen with Puff each day," she continues. "There was just no room for error. Diddy was one of the most intense people you could ever work with. I experienced everything from race remarks to sexism, and a lot of it was scary. I have a very strong mom who wasn't necessarily a nurturer, and I remember one time as a kid, I hit my knee, and as it was bleeding everywhere, she said, 'Suck it up, Aubrey.' That was proper training for what I would experience on Making the Band." These days, however, Aubrey seems to be on the sole mission of exposing Diddy for who she believes him to be when no one's watching. But there's a backstory to Aubrey's most recent revelation about him. In fact, you could easily say Diddy is directly responsible for her calling him out. A couple of days ago, Sean "Diddy" Combs, the music mogul and founder of Bad Boy Records, made headlines after announcing his decision to reassign publishing rights to some of the artists associated with his iconic label. This move has sparked both praise and controversy within the music industry, as artists like Biggie, Mace, the LOX, and others are in the process of regaining control over their creative works. During a recent interview with The Breakfast Club, Diddy shed light on the motivation behind his decision to reassign publishing rights. He explained that this change came after a period of self-reflection and was triggered in part by his own criticisms of the Grammy Awards. Once you start asking for change in this world, he stated, you have to look within and be a part of that change. However, not all reactions to Diddy's announcement have been positive. Aubrey recently provided her perspective on her former boss's magnanimous decision during an appearance on the Only Stands podcast. According to Aubrey, the deal offered to some of Diddy's artists may not be as favorable as it seems. She disclosed that the offer she received a few months ago would only allow her to receive a portion of the earnings generated after Sony purchased the catalog. Aubrey explained that for several years of streaming revenue, her share amounted to approximately $800, $900. Aubrey also outlined certain conditions that artists are allegedly required to meet to regain their publishing rights. These conditions reportedly include releasing Diddy from any prior claims or actions and signing a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, that prevents them from publicly disparaging Diddy, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, Justin Combs' music, or EMI, and Sony. I have to release him for any claims or wrongdoings or actions prior to the date of the release, she described. I have to sign an NDA that I will never disparage Puff, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, or Justin Cobbs' music, or EMI, or Sony ever in public. Explaining the implication of the message from Diddy's camp, Aubrey said none of the artists that got their catalog back since Sony purchased them have made above a couple of $100, so it's a ripoff to her. She made sure that there was no universe where sealing her lips forever was worth that. The singer raised the stakes by stating that she had also contacted other members of the girl group to decline the offer from Diddy's camp. She added that if they were in dire need of money, she could secure them a show on Hulu, that there was no universe where sealing her lips forever was worth that. Considering the record of Danity Kane for being among a handful of boy-girl bands that have dropped 2 platinum albums, she might actually pull it off. Especially if you also take into account that music has evolved so much over the years since their time. She didn't stop there. She also revealed that was willing to pay her group member the amounts they were slated to collect in the agreement, all in the name of getting them not to sign away their freedom. The downside to all of these damaging details about Diddy coming out is that they are starting to lead fans to the other skeletons the man might be hiding. That was the case with this user who said, Diddy has a really dark side. All of a sudden, I'm beginning to believe he might—
I don't have anybody really agree with me because, you know, certain people sign up to get fucked. Certain people, if you're gonna keep it real, certain people sign up to do the job of paying their rent that way. Right. You know, I didn't sign up for that. I felt like my talent was enough. So, now that 4 years later that I have experience in seeing, not putting anyone's business out, because, you know, what you do in your personal bed is whatever you do. But as far as me, when I go to an appearance, I want to get paid for that appearance. So we never